Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Coming up a little bit later in the show, we'll profile Watford City singer Jesse Veter. But first, joining me now is Jasper Snyder, the USDA Rural Development Director for North Dakota. Jasper, thanks for joining us today.
John, thanks for having me.
As we get started, some folks probably know you, but tell the folks out there a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Well, I'm currently the State Director for USDA Rural Development and make my home in Bismarck, but actually I was born and raised in Fargo. My parents, my dad was also a Fargo boy, but my mom, born and raised in Bowman, and they met at North Dakota State University, and I came into the picture. I'm an attorney by trade, but also have an IT background. I started a IT business in college. Went to Jamestown College in Jamestown, North Dakota, and started a business there that grew up and allowed me to pay my way through law school. Returned back to North Dakota, started a law practice in Fargo, and enjoyed doing that. Also was in the North Dakota legislature for 2 sessions, in the 2007 and 2009 legislative sessions, where we had both surpluses and tackled those many issues. And for the past 3 years, have been the state director at USDA. I'm married to my high school sweetheart, Kim, and we have 4 wonderful children. Last summer we were blessed with twins. And so we've got a full house, and it's busy, but a lot of fun.
Full house, and it sounds like a full plate. And we've got a lot of information we want to cover
Sure.
today. Now, you were doing a program recently called North Dakota 2.0. What is that, and what was it about?
Well, North Dakota 2.0 is an initiative all about the future of our great state. Because of our unprecedented economic success and prosperity that we're going through, we are in such a unique position right now to define what our future looks like instead of our future defining us. And so we started an initiative last summer to begin that discussion about what does North Dakota look like 20 years, 50 years down the road. And I care a lot about this state. North Dakota is a wonderful place to live. But the challenge that we have is how do we make sure that this short-term economic prosperity that we're going through is here for the long run? How do we make sure that we preserve our high quality of life, yet reach our full potential? And so we began this discussion about the future. And I knew that if we were going to do this right, it had to be free of any bias. It had to be collaborative. And so we partnered with a lot of wonderful entities, North Dakota Farmers Union, Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Dakota, AARP, Advanced Engineering, Basin Electric. And we held an event called North Dakota 2.0 last October in Bismarck and begin the discussion. But what we learned from that day is that we tapped into something positive. People were hungry for that discussion about what does the next chapter of North Dakota look like. They also told us that they were hungry for leadership on the issue. They didn't feel like they were getting it elsewhere. But they also told us they wanted more. And so we decided to take that spirit and take the show on the road. And over the past several months, have been holding town hall community 2.0 meetings across the state.
Well, now, but why and how did USDA Rural Development get involved?
Well, this is a state I care a lot about, and I felt there was a void of being proactive about what our future looks like. And so you look at a state like North Dakota and an agency like Rural Development, our missions are so much aligned. North Dakota is a rural state, always has been. Our 2 biggest industries, energy production and agriculture, both very much rural industries. Also, we're an agency that invests, in the past year, $450 million into North Dakota. And so getting a good sense of where people are at, what the issues are, and where we need to go are important decisions for our agency to know, and good feedback for us to have in making targeted investments.
Well, you said you started in Bismarck, but I understand you went to 12 different communities, including Linden, Garrison, Oaks, Devils Lake, and others out there. Can you tell us about how those meetings went?
Yeah, well, it was important to us that we get off the interstate and we get out to our more rural communities. And so we picked 12 communities across North Dakota, a good cross-section of the state, and held town hall style meetings. They were open to the public. Everybody that came was given a clicker, remote control, and we went through a series of questions and people were able to vote and give feedback. And what that did is really 2 things. It allowed everybody to participate anonymously. It allowed us to collect that numerical data. but also stimulated a really good discussion on where people are at in that particular region.
Okay, and I assume when you went to the communities you had different attendance, but kind of what was I mean, how many people did you have? Average, I guess.
Yeah, I would say on the low end, 20 in some of our more rural communities. On the high end, 70, 80 people. At our Bismarck and Fargo events, approximately 200 and some. And so cumulatively, a good cross-section of people. And I think what is neat about North Dakota 2.0, it was a vehicle to bring a good, diverse cross-section of people into one tent to really focus on one topic, and that's the future of our state.
Well, you mentioned, I guess you sort of wrapped it up in Fargo in April 17th, I believe. Can you talk about that event?
Yeah, we held our capstone North Dakota 2.0 conference past April in Fargo. And that was a conference which was a cumulative effort from our 12 previous tours. And so we asked the same questions that we asked across the state, but also shared the statewide results on what the rest of the state is saying on a number of issues.
Can you compare, or do you have the data yet, contrasting ideas from east versus west or rural versus urban?
Yeah, probably the biggest unifying theme is the shortage of affordable quality housing. It's not just an issue in energy impacted areas and the oil boom. It's certainly an issue there too. But we heard that same issue in Linton and Grafton. In Fargo. It's a big challenge, and housing is such an issue because of the appraisal gaps, because of our hot economy, because we have such low unemployment. Wages are inflated, the cost of materials are inflated, and so if you're building a new home and that home may cost, because of those two things, $170,000, $180,000 to build. It may only appraise at 140 or 150, and so there's if you're from a lending perspective, there's a gap there, and also from a government has a role to play here too. Oftentimes the bottleneck in constructing new homes is oftentimes the capacity of the existing water and sewer, and those take resources to expand on those. And so housing is a complex issue and one that we heard all over the state of North Dakota.
Well, how about the outcomes of all these meetings when you compile all the information, and what will happen with it?
Well, the most important thing that can happen with the report we just released is that people use it as a resource and a reference. A lot of the conclusions and recommendations aren't new ideas or big surprises, but it's important that we have it documented and that and we have it in a report that's tangible. It was delivered to decision makers on all levels, both local, state, and also federal leaders. And the best thing that they can do is listen to the people that sent them there.
Okay, so you sort of answered the question, how is it going to be helpful to the state? But hopefully these decision makers will review it and utilize that. Is that what you're hoping?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important, it's important for myself as head of USDA Rural Development in making decisions. But so much of these issues that were raised in the report have to be a collaborative effort. It's not going to be one person or one level of government that solves these issues, but really the federal government, state government, working hand in hand with counties, cities, and the private sector to advance these projects and solve problems.
Okay. Well, now if people want more information about North Dakota 2.0, maybe they've read about it or seen about it, where can they go to find out more?
They can go to the website, which is nd20.com, ND20, and they can download the report, see the results from these different communities. Okay.
Well, so let's go back maybe a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about other aspects of USDA, the rural development there. What is the mission of the organization? You mentioned it earlier, but...
Well, the mission of USDA Rural Development is that we're committed to the future of rural communities. Mm-hmm. And you look at a state like North Dakota, always a rural state, always have been. Every county in our great state is rural. Even if you get right outside of Fargo or Bismarck, you're right in the heart of production agriculture. And so when you're talking about the mission and the future of rural development, it's really the mission and the future of North Dakota. The two are almost synonymous. And so we take that role very seriously, and it allows us to play a significant role in building a better North Dakota.
Well, so how is USDA Rural Development funded? What kind of budget do you have?
Well, we're established through the Farm Bill. Mm-hmm. And so, the Farm Bill that's currently being debated in the Congress right now is so important to an agency like ours. Oftentimes, when you think Farm Bill, you're thinking, crop insurance and different commodity groups and things like that, oftentimes it doesn't get equated to infrastructure. But our programs are established and funded through that Farm Bill. Just in the past year alone, John, we've invested $450 million into North Dakota infrastructure projects. And this includes kind of the nuts and bolts stuff of what makes a community tick. Hospitals, long-term care clinics, emergency services, different utilities, electrical, broadband internet, water systems. And what we do is we provide access to capital. And so if you're a community, if you're looking to do a project really of any size, the bottleneck oftentimes is that upfront cost, and we provide access to the capital to advance projects and move them forward.
Okay. Well, can you talk about, so what is the definition of rural, and has it changed over the years?
Well, it has. I think one of the things that's interesting about the definition of rural is by law, USDA defines it differently than how you and I would. We have programs that will work in communities up to 50,000 in population, places that you and I would definitely not consider rural, but by definition of USDA it does. What that means for a state like North Dakota is we can generally provide our programs and services in everywhere in this great state outside of the city of Fargo and the city of Bismarck.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the key areas or maybe top priorities that you work in. Housing is one, I understand.
Yeah. I would say when I came into office 3 years ago, one of my top priorities, in addition to housing, was expanding access to healthcare. I mean, healthcare is such a big component of the future of our state, especially with aging populations. In my opinion, a lot of our existing healthcare infrastructure was outdated. It was in need of major upgrades. And so over the past 3 years, I've directed a tremendous amount of resources to upgrade our healthcare infrastructure, built new hospitals in Jamestown, for example, and to address the needs of the oil boom, built new hospitals in Crosby. We're in the process of building a 60,000 square foot clinic partnering with Trinity Health into Williston, but also expanded access to long-term care with new facilities across the state. But one of the unifying themes we heard in North Dakota 2.0, and we hear when we visit rural communities also, is the need for emergency healthcare services. And so we've expanded that. We've made a significant investment into first responders, whether it's EMS or police or fire. That's a significant component of what we do as well.
Okay. And you mentioned energy programs, and they're also administered by the USDA. Can you expand on some of those as well? Because obviously it's not just the oil is energy, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of people wonder, well, why is the United States Department of Agriculture working with energy programs? And you look at the two. In a lot of ways, they're meshing. Obviously, agriculture can lead directly to energy production with biofuels, but also from a rural development standpoint, you look at domestic energy production. Very much a rural industry. And you also look at the national economic recovery that we're going through. Two of the bright spots are agriculture and energy production happening right in Middle America and in places like North Dakota. And so what we do at rural development is such a complement to that effort.
Jasper, how do you think the state's doing right now? Are we seeing young people still leaving the state, or has the out-migration slowed down in the past few years?
We've got a lot of work to do as a state. Look at the numbers economically, doing quite well. I think our challenge, John, is to make sure that the prosperity that's read about and seen on the state level is felt at the local level with counties and cities. We also need to make sure that we preserve our quality of life. The one thing we've always had going for us in North Dakota, good times or bad economically, is that high quality of life. And that means things like access to good health care, good schools, clean air, good recreational opportunities, low crime. And so the challenge for us is that we reach our full potential economically while preserving the sacred cow we've always had, and that's our high quality of life. And the population is interesting too. Certainly there's parts of the state that have increased in population, but when you dive into the 2010 census numbers, they're a little more humbling. 42 of our counties actually lost population. And so we've got some work to do. Now more than ever, we need to be smart and strategic about what our future looks like. We can't just play catch up, we can't just be reactive, but we have to be proactive and get ahead of this thing.
You know, North Dakota's seen an oil boom before, not like this one, I don't think, but how has this oil boom affected, especially western North Dakota, you know, negative and positive, but let's start with negative so we can end with positive.
Sure. Well, no doubt about it. The oil boom has been a game changer economically for North Dakota, for that whole region. I mean, they're seeing all sorts of activity. I would say, you know, the challenges that it has brought is population increases oftentimes have challenges. There's shortages of essential services, police, fire, access to health care. There's been spikes in crime. There's been deterioration of infrastructure. And those are all things that we absolutely need to get ahead of. The positives that have occurred are that it's created population growth in that area. Economically, of course, it's allowed us to provide property tax relief across the state. It's allowed for funding of higher educations and a bunch of other initiatives that wouldn't be possible without the profit from those from that natural resource.
Sure. Yeah, are these small towns, though, I mean, are they overwhelmed in terms of their infrastructure? And really, what's being done about it? Because I know the legislature talked about it and looking at it. So what do you see being done?
They are overwhelmed. There's a lot of work to do with infrastructure in the oil patch, but also across the state. We have dramatic needs for road improvements. The legislature, I think, has done a fair job playing catch up. In my opinion, they've directed resources that have helped play catch up in certain areas, but I don't think have gone far enough in being proactive in a long-term solution. I'm a big believer that we need a state infrastructure plan. We need to look 20 years out, look at the needs of the whole state, not just one part, and make it collaborative where you get federal partners involved, state partners, counties, cities, and the private sector to look at the infrastructure needs and then find a way to pay for it.
You get 15 seconds. Are you confident of the future of North Dakota in rural and urban areas?
I am. The future of North Dakota is bright, but the most important thing we have to remember is that we've got to get this right. And by being smart and strategic, we'll get there.
Okay. Jasper, if people want more information about North Dakota 2.0 or USDA rural development, where can they go? Who can they contact?
They can contact our office here in Bismarck, 701-530-2037, or just usda.gov.
Jasper, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, John.
Stay tuned for more. At the age of 12, Jessie Veeder started writing original folk and alternative music to lyrics that referenced her own life experiences. Today, she enjoys life on the ranch in Watford City, North Dakota, and has established herself as an accomplished musician. Her charm, talent, and free-spirited personality came to life in our studio as she performed her music with Lonesome Willie.
Donnie has got a truck and he's always here on time. Big boots and gravel roads, keeps it between two lines. $30 an hour and the pay is good, but no time's better spent than the way your daddy should. Still he hangs around Boomtown.
The writing process for me has always been pretty kind of organic. A lot of the music that I wrote originally on my first couple albums were about the tie to the land and being kind of a member of the hills and knowing where your favorite tree is and understanding that the ways of life are changing out there is connected to that landscape.
Shelly don't stop moving till the sun goes down. What she once was, she's not. What she's lost and now found brings them breakfast in the morning and ice cold beer at night. Listens to them talk, brave but there are fights she stands around. Boomtown, people line like houses up and down the street. Bottom line below us, about 10,000 feet. 22 degrees, you'll find a better place to go. You'd be here too, you know you'd hang around. Boomtown.
I grew up in Watford City. I went to high school there. I graduated with a class of 45 kids. My dad has been there when things were really rough and people couldn't make a living. Those memories are there, and now all of a sudden we have all these people from all over the country coming to Mackenzie County, coming to Watford City to try to make a living and really have a good life. And there's challenges that come with that. There's things that happen to the landscape. There's things that happen to the community. But Boomtown was my kind of call out to everybody to say, hey, look, listen, every individual that comes through this main street, every person that is setting up shop or asking for a job or working, serving your coffee you've never met, they all have a story and a reason that they came here, had the reason they had traveled maybe hundreds of miles and left their family behind. These are all people who are just trying to have a better life, and I wanted to take little snapshots of them in each verse. One about a truck driver who misses his kids, and the next verse about a waitress who just works her butt off, and someone who came back home and maybe lost everything but came back home and found himself again. Those are all stories that are out there, and if I could catch that in one song, that's what I wanted to do. And I'm really very proud of Boomtown, and I think it can be our little anthem.
Heard they just got married down in Arkansas. Lost a child and a job before he made the call. Heard the weather's rough and the house is few. Got something for me, sir. What's a man to do but try his round? Boomtown. Bottom line below us, about 10,000 feet. 22 below, you find a better place to go. You'd be here too, you know you'd hang around. Boomtown. Stopped by the farmhouse the other day. Jimmy's moved back home. He's helping Dad cut hay. Pumps in the morning, but he gets home by 5. We almost lost him there. Now he's more alive. God bless the sound. Boomtown. Boomtown.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Pulse for this week. And as always, thanks for watching.
Funded in part by the North Dakota Council on the Arts and by the members of Prairie Public.